Am I the asshole for making my wife think our son was missing? My wife has a horrible habit that I discovered 2 months ago. We were ordering lunch on the subway and I told her to pick the location that has a drive-thru, that way we don't have to go inside and take the baby out of the car. She told me it's not a big deal to leave the baby in the car and pick it up really quick. I had no idea she ever did this. I said I wasn't comfortable even for a minute and she told me she's been doing it since he was born. I was floored. We don't live in a horrible area, but it's also not super safe either, and I told her to never do this again. She told me she never thought about the potential dangers and that she would stop doing it. Well, yesterday I spotted her car at a gas station near our place. When I got there, I was furious to find our son in his car seat and the car wasn't even locked. I decided to take my son and put him in my car. I then drove to the other side of the gas station parking lot and waited for my wife to come out. It took 6 minutes, and when she saw he was gone, she looked stunned and started frantically looking around and crying. When I saw her pull her phone out, I pulled around to her. She looked extremely relieved to see our son, but then quickly turned to anger, asking me why I took him and did that to her. I said she needed to learn her lesson, and she promised to stop leaving him in the car. It was so easy for me to take him. No one else at the gas station even noticed. He called me cruel and psychotic and is wanting an apology. Am I the asshole for disrespecting my in-laws and leaving the dinner table after my husband's dad insulted me? Last night I had my in-laws visit, made them dinner, and put it on the table. I had my own dinner, which was yogurt and salad, because I gained a few pounds and my husband pushed me to lose some. Anyway, we were sitting eating when my husband's dad asked what I was eating. I told him a salad, and with a confused look on his face, he said, "A salad? That ain't gonna fill your fat ass." Suddenly, some of my in-laws started giggling and my husband too. I felt upset and humiliated. I got up from my seat and went to stay in my room until my in-laws left. My husband barged in asking why the hell I left my guests by themselves. I told him his dad insulted me and made a joke in front of everyone. He said I was being too sensitive and too self-cautious and that didn't warrant leaving the table and disrespecting his family. I argued that he should have defended me instead of laughing along, but he insisted it was a joke and I should chill. He then said that he's not a police officer or a lawyer, so I should stop expecting him to get involved in every disagreement, especially since I'm an adult. We kept arguing and he said I disrespected his family by leaving the table and hiding in my room like I was a child. Mother-in-law sent a text about how inappropriate my behavior was.
I sustained very bad injuries to my face this month. I'm in the stage of healing when the scar tissue has formed, but it's still very tender new skin. I'm going to have very obvious facial scarring for the rest of my life. The injury starts about an inch above my hairline, goes down over my eyebrows, so on that part, hair will not grow. It continues down my cheek where it's the deepest. I'll probably always have an indentation in the fullest part of my cheek. Then it continues to my jawline. In some ways, it's okay. I'm happy it's just cosmetic damage. My friends are super reassuring, telling me how badass and sick it's gonna look. They say I'm still hot as ever, now a little more sexy and mysterious. But in some ways, it really sucks. I know I'm always gonna be seen first as the girl with the scar, and it feels especially bad when people look at me differently. This week, I had to fly home for a family thing. It was a plan I made long before my injury. I wasn't really looking forward to the pity or people making a big deal of it. I'd rather it not be acknowledged. I'd also met with my dermatologist who said I was at the stage of the scar tissue formation that I no longer should be dressing the wounds. The skin was healing and instead I needed to be applying topical cream and Vaseline to keep the site clean and moist. It also looks a bit ugly. The building scar tissue is very red and tender, and with Vaseline over it, looks slick and shiny. So I get on this flight. I have the window seat and I put my headphones on and drift to sleep when the plane is still boarding. I wake up to this kid, maybe 4 years old, sat next to me, throwing a tantrum. I didn't catch the first part of it and I honestly couldn't understand what he was yelling about. His father said to me, "Can you cover that injury?" I said that my dermatologist recommends that I don't, so no, I don't think I will. He started snapping at me saying, "There is no need to be so rude. That injury is graphic and it's scaring my little one." I said, "This is my face. The only damn face that I've got. It sucks being told I'm so ugly that I can't show my goddamn face in public." He started to backtrack saying, "Just until it's healed." And I said, "It'll always be with me. Maybe teach some fucking compassion and respect instead of telling a girl half your damn age what you think about her face. That's rude." He actually got up after and I think he went to the stewardess about a seat change because a young couple came and sat next to me a few minutes afterwards. I've got to admit, I felt so low that I put on my sunglasses and had a quiet cry for a few minutes. Am I the asshole for not covering up my healing scar and for being confrontational about it?
Storytime about how my husband moved his mistress into our home and is making me pay for all the bills. Disclaimers now my Storytime. I said I mean Instagram. By the way, this is my beautiful sister Marcella. She's going on a fancy boat for a bridal shower. Back to the story. My husband and I have been together for 4 years. He did cheat on me when we were boyfriend and girlfriend, but I did forgive him for that. We were engaged for about 2 years, which in my book is a very long time. He kept putting off the wedding and here was my mistake. I gave him an ultimatum. We either got married or we needed to break up. I decided to tell him the truth. There were several men in my life that were interested in dating me. I kept rejecting them because I thought thought I was gonna get married to this man. And of course, he got incredibly jealous. The next day, we set a date for our wedding. Fast forward to last year. I started to suspect that he was seeing someone else. I noticed that he started hiding his phone from me, and he would always have it on do not disturb mode. So I started getting really suspicious, of course. I started my own business online, and I was selling a lot of products through my website. So I decided to get myself a new car. After that, he started acting even stranger. He would make comments about how nice my car was, and that the least I could have done was bought him one too. There was no way I was gonna buy him a car. His behavior was so odd. One day he fell asleep on the couch, so I decided to look at his phone. That's when I found that he was hiding a bunch of dating apps. He had over 40 conversations on each app. I quickly confronted him. Of course, he started to lie. He told me his friends downloaded all the dating apps on his phone as a joke. So I pulled up all the conversations he had on the dating apps and I started reading them to him. That's when he said that he was just testing it out to see if he could find anybody, as an experiment. Well, guess what? I questioned him for 2 hours. By the end of the 2 hours, he told me the truth. He said that he had been dating a few women and that he was only doing it because he wasn't happy in the marriage. That's when I told him that he should have just told me the truth because I've been wasting all my time trying to be with him. He then swore to me up and down that he would stop. A few months later, he was acting strange again, and this time I decided to follow him. The first day I started following him, I saw he went to some girl's house, knocked on her door, and I confronted them together. My husband told me that he fell in love. It felt like someone had kicked me in the chest. I told him that I just wanted to speak civilly. So we all sat down and spoke for 5 hours. By the end of those 5 hours, my husband somehow convinced me that the best thing was for her to move into our home. Apparently she had financial trouble and her ex was stalking her. My husband told me that the best thing would be for all of us to be in a relationship and that would make him happiest. Otherwise, he would want to get a divorce from me. So I felt like I had to agree. So this girl ended up moving into our house, but my husband decided to quit his job so that he could take care of her because of her crazy ex. And he told me that I was making enough money for the 3 of us. That's when I found myself having to pay for all of our dinners, our groceries, and rent. After a few weeks, I told him that he and her needed to move out or that they both needed to get a job. That's when he told me that I would be putting both their lives in danger if I made them get jobs because of her ex. I know I should just get a divorce, but somehow I think that this can be fixed. I need you guys to give me the strength to divorce him. Help me out.
Am I the a-hole for not doing anything after discovering that my wife deleted my daughter's novel? I have been married to my wife, Hannah, 36, for 2 years. She and my daughter, Morgan, 16, don't have a daughter-mother relationship. To be completely transparent here, they both fight often and just don't get along. Morgan used to spend most of her time at her mom's, but now is staying with us for school. I remember Hannah telling me about a novel Morgan has been writing on her laptop. She admitted to sneaking and looking at it without Morgan's knowledge, but she praised her writing style and storytelling. So I thought that was a positive thing. Yesterday, I got back home and found Morgan and her mom yelling at Hannah. I asked what was happening, and Morgan told me that Hannah deleted her novel. Hannah said that Morgan created a character in the novel using her description and name, and making her the villain. Not only that, but she wrote bad words about her. Morgan argued that it was just a character, and Hannah had no business snooping on her laptop to begin with. Hannah broke down crying after my ex-wife threatened her. I just watched the 3 of them fight and did nothing nor said a single word. I stepped out for a minute to get fresh air, and moments later, Hannah unloaded on me about how I should have defended her in the argument instead of acting so cowardly. Morgan and her mom also said that I should have done something when Hannah decided to snoop, then deleted Morgan's month's worth of work. It just became too much with the 3 of them berating me and yelling in my face. Morgan went home with her mom and she was crying and refused to speak to me. And Hannah checked into a hotel also refusing to speak to me. The texts from both sides kept coming in, both telling me I should have done something and should have taken their side in the argument. I just had to stay out of this one. I was on my feet the entire week working. Both mental and physical health are down the drain, and I'm tired of them fighting all the time then blaming me for my actions / or lack thereof. Both are expecting me to get involved and do something to fix this, but I haven't done anything yet. Am I the a-hole for not getting involved? Am I the a-hole for telling the officer where my mom's boyfriend was the day he was supposed to attend court? So my 16 male mom has been with her boyfriend Joseph for a few months now. He lives with us most of the time. Now, I don't know the full extent of what's going on exactly, but from what I understand is that he got caught up in child support case and he just keeps missing court dates after court date, basically avoiding to show up. Also, from what I understand, his ex has a sick child who needs money to pay for medical bills. The other day, an officer showed up to our house while I was outside fixing the fence. Joseph opened the door and I heard his entire conversation with the officer, telling him he couldn't attend court last week because he had a family emergency and had to go out of town to deal with it. The officer seemed skeptical about believing his story and insisted on the importance of respecting court date/attendance. After the officer was done talking to Joseph, he approached me and started asking me about what I was doing. He then asked if I saw Joseph on X date Y day. I said yes. Told him he was with mom at her apartment that is located in X location. The officer seemed confused. He went back to the porch and rang the door again. Joseph opened the door and they started talking. I freaked out internally because the officer was confronting him with my statement. So I decided to go to a neighbor's friend's place. After a while, I got an angry call from mom telling me to get my snitching butt home ASAP. I went home and she blew up at me saying that Joseph had just been taken to the police station after I snitched on him to the officer. I told her I got worried and couldn't lie to the officer, but she screamed that I just got her boyfriend in a huge trouble instead of keeping my mouth shut or say I knew nothing. She scolded me for 30 minutes, had a full-on breakdown, then punished me, then left to be with Joseph at the station. I felt so confused and regretful for getting them into trouble, but I just couldn't help lie to the officer because this could have major repercussions, and I'm not the type who wants to get involved in trouble. I'm punished for eternity by the looks of it, and I don't think I made a right call here. Am I the a-hole for calling my boyfriend useless because he invited his friends over to get drunk while looking after my son? I, 24 female, have a 4-year-old son from a past fling, and the father is not in the picture. I do have a boyfriend, 25 male, who I have been dating since mid-2020. Although he has a great bond with my son, I have never left them alone by themselves for longer than 20 minutes. Obviously, it takes time to build that level of trust, especially considering he doesn't have experience with children. Anyway, my older sister's bachelorette party was last night, and I had no one to babysit my son. Usually my mom does, but she wasn't available, so I was planning on hiring a babysitter. This was when my boyfriend offered to look after him. Initially, I was hesitant, but I decided to say yes because he has never done anything wrong by me or my son. So I went and attended my sister's bachelorette. My boyfriend is pretty familiar with my son's schedule, but I wrote him a list before I left just in case. Later in the night, I called my boyfriend to check up on how he was going, but he wasn't answering his phone. I texted and called him multiple times with no reply. I was anxious as hell, so I decided to leave hours early and go home. When I went inside, my boyfriend and a bunch of his friends were in the living room playing games and drinking. There was alcohol everywhere. The only positive thing is that my son was in bed. I waited until my boyfriend's friends left to confront him. He said that he invited his friends over last minute, and it wasn't planned beforehand. I was irate because I don't want drunk people around my 4-year-old child. My boyfriend claims he wasn't drinking, but I could smell alcohol on his breath, so I know he's lying. I told him he was freaking useless, and I'm never gonna trust him again. He pretty much feigned innocence, said he did nothing wrong, he was just hanging with his friends, and that looked after my son just as I had asked. Now he's claiming that I'm creating unnecessary drama. I'm ungrateful and I should be thanking him, not biting his head off. We're both pissed at each other, but I believe I have every right to be angry, unlike him. Am I the a-hole?
Storytime about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. Little background information, I was 18 and in 12th grade. I had always had trouble in school, especially history class. And I had always had tutors and everything like that. And eventually I just got tired of trying to get my grade up because I realized that it was never going to happen. So my teacher was 27 years old. We're going to call him Mike. And Mike had a girlfriend. He had been staying after school helping me like every single day. From like 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Well, the one day I had this outfit on that maybe wasn't that appropriate. And I was being super flirty with him the whole time. To be honest, I just didn't want to put in the effort to get up my grades. And then 10 minutes later, he started getting handsy. And I told him that if he wanted to do anything, he had to get my grade up for me. So he did just that. Well, for the next couple of months, I would go over to his house to study. Part 2 about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. So like I said, I got tired of putting effort in to get my grade up. So I let him hit, and then I was going over his house after school. Well, later on at the end of the year, I find out that I'm pregnant. And because I was 18, I really didn't have to care about what my parents thought. So I told him, and surprisingly, this man was on board with it. He was like, oh my god, like, let's do this. I'm so happy. And I was like, what the fuck? Well, his ex-girlfriend found out, so she went and told the school. He got fired. And 3 years later, we're still together raising our child.
Am I the a-hole for telling my stepmother to get over her child calling my wife mom? My father married my now stepmother late in life after an accidental pregnancy. For reference, my father is 71, my wife and I are 32 and 30, and my stepmother is 41. My stepmother was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer while pregnant, and it has progressed to stage 4. She has less than a year to live. We've already worked it out between the three of us that after my stepmother passes on, my wife and I will be adopting the baby. It's the perfect solution. My father will get to fully retire and have a more appropriate grandfather role. My wife and I will be able to have a second child, and our older child will be able to have a younger sibling that they've already bonded with, since we already do most of the care for the baby because she's far too ill. I came over to visit and show them pictures and videos of the kids. I didn't think about this, but in one of the videos, the baby can be heard saying mama to my wife. She got angry at that and asked if we allow the baby to say that. Which we do, and it came out that we would be adopting the baby when she passes on. She balked at that and said she would never allow it. But quite frankly, that's just not her choice. I tried to tell her not to worry about it and that we would make sure she wasn't forgotten. But she got angry and tried to say that she would stop it. I shouldn't have engaged, but I did, and I ended up telling her to get over it because that's just what it was going to be. She started crying and I stormed out. My father is upset with me for upsetting her, which I feel bad about, but she's the one who made a big deal about it. She never had to even think about it. She brought it up, not me. We didn't want to stress her out about it because there was no need to. But what did you think the reality of the situation was going to be? My wife and I are already the ones raising this child. My father is too old to fully raise another child or even want to. I don't think it's my fault that she pressed for a truth and then didn't like what she found.
Found out husband, 25 male, is cheating on me, 24 female, and I haven't told him yet that I know. I'm totally shaken right now and my mind is numb now, so if this doesn't make any sense, please keep that in mind. Husband, 25 male, and I, 24 female, have been married for a year and a half. We celebrate our second anniversary in February. We knew each other since college and he has always been a good husband and partner. Weirdly enough, lately he was even more attentive than usual, and honestly it felt great to have a partner who wanted you so much, and I didn't have the slightest clue that it might even be a lie. I wouldn't have even suspected anything, but about a week ago, I asked to use his phone to call my parents, who live in another country, as his phone plan has international free minutes, but he refused, saying he used them all up. When I asked to check how many are left, he got frustrated as he was playing on his PS5 and just wanted to play in peace. I shrugged it off as stress, but something in the back of my mind was telling me to look into this further. For the next few days, every time I would ask to see his phone, he would get defensive. The other day, he did hand me his phone but hovered over me the whole time and then snatched it right away, saying he needed it for work. Mind you, I only asked for it to use his PayPal account and didn't even go near any of his social media apps. I'll admit, my curiosity got the best of me while acting like I was scrolling through my phone. I'd take note of his passcode. It took a while, but I finally got it. The only time the phone isn't on him is when he's asleep, so last night I took it and started searching. To his credit, I found nothing in his contacts or his latest chats to suggest he was having an affair, but once I checked the archive in his WhatsApp, it was all there. He is cheating on me with a co-worker, one I've met many times, and she would have been the last person I would suspect. She's married, 38 years old, and has a 12-year-old daughter. I feel disgusted reading all of their chats. I felt like I was going to throw up. But the biggest punch in the gut, he told her that he loved her. She's out on vacation and he told her, "I can't wait to see you, and I wish your husband wasn't there so I could pick you up from the airport and hug you." Honestly, I feel numb. My heart has been shattered into a million pieces. This morning when he was leaving, I told him I was sick and couldn't get up. He asked if he needed to take me to the doctor, to which I just said I'll ask my friend to take me, and he left. I don't know how to talk to him about this. A part of me wants answers, but another part of me wants to believe this isn't real and to save my marriage. But what is there to save if he's already told this woman he loves her? I feel so many things, so much anger, resentment, yet I'm utterly crushed and I've been second-guessing myself. Did I go wrong anywhere? I know I shouldn't think like this, but I can't help myself. I don't know how to go forward with this. He's going back home in a few hours. I thought about breaking everything in the house so he could see how he broke our home, then thought of leaving without telling him, but I want answers as well. I seriously don't know what to do here. My 28 female friend, 41 female, announced she is getting married next week. I have reason to believe she is lying. Wendy and I have been friends for several years. We used to live in the same city and see one another often. I knew she had a history of traumatic relationships and had hence decided not to date. But I also knew she had a pretty intense crush on a friend of a friend I had never met, James. When I moved to another state, we stayed in touch via phone calls. She told me that her feelings for James were becoming stronger, despite the fact that they had no contact. Soon, she began telling me that they were in love, but his ex-girlfriend was preventing them from being together. Because these conversations became so odd, I stopped the calls and stepped away from the friendship. This week, I visited my former city on an impromptu trip and met up with Wendy. She told me the exciting news that her and James were finally getting married after this ex had kept them apart so long. She showed me photos of a home he bought her, of horses he bought her, and of her in a wedding dress. She told me the name of the venue and invited me. Then she dropped the bombshell that James is apparently a millionaire. All of this seemed off to me, and when I got home, my concerns mounted. Her house was not packed despite the fact she is supposedly moving imminently. Money seems tight for her. She is living in relative squalor. If she has a millionaire fiancé, why isn't he helping her? I did some digging. I found the house she showed me on Zillow still for sale. I found the horses on a website for a local ranch that does tours. I called the venue and they told me that they are unbooked on the supposed wedding date. All the available evidence tells me she is not getting married. My gut tells me that her and James are not even in a relationship or have any contact. I don't know what to do next. Do I confront her? Do I warn James? Are these simply lies or are they delusions and the symptoms of a serious mental illness? How do I help her?
Okay, one thing I think a lot of people actually need to understand nowadays is that the bro code is actually a real thing. Now, guys, you could say I'm wrong for this, and many people don't actually believe in the bro code, same way that girls don't believe in the girl code or whatever girls have technically in this time and age. But personally, in my opinion, the bro code is actually a thing that does exist, because let's be honest, if there wasn't a bro code, I don't think we'd have a lot of homies. And I think that's one of the reasons why girls always have an issue, because they like the idea of the bro code, and that's why a lot of girls say, oh, I have a lot of guy friends, as obviously you guys heard from the last storyline. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I learned about the bro code the hardest way possible, and that way is breaking the bro code. And yes, I have done it. It's not the best idea, and I don't advise anyone else to do it, because let's be honest, it's the bro code. Who wants to break the damn bro code? So it all started like this. Basically, back in high school, I had that group of friends. They were guys. I don't talk to any of them anymore, because you know, ever since I broke the bro code, things were just weird between us after high school. You know, they're driving trucks and acting all cool and stuff with their Mazdas while I'm just sitting in a penthouse recording video. Never mind. Anyways, so basically I remember one time in high school, I was just kind of chilling with the boys. You know, we all had cars at the time. We all drove. We all did our own things. You know, we just kind of hung out naturally. And we would do this thing that's party hopping. Basically, party hopping is like when you go from one party to the next, and we just keep doing that over and over. And I remember this was like, you know, exclusively just for the boys. Like, you know, me and like 4 other guys, or actually I think it was like 5 or 6 of us, to be honest. Anyways, we'd all meet up at like a certain spot, usually a gas station, so we can fill up our tanks, and we'd go from one party to the next over and over until we just decide to pass out at a certain place, because we don't drink and drive. That's not a thing you should ever do. Anyways, I remember one time me and all my friends decided to go party hopping one night. It was a Saturday night. It was a basic night, and I remember we all met up at a gas station. Now, like I said earlier, it's usually just for the boys to go party hopping, because, you know, we don't really invite the girls to the boys things, if that makes sense in a way. And I remember one time when we all met up at a gas station, we ended up seeing my friend bringing his girlfriend. To be honest, I don't know if they were actually dating, because they weren't like very serious or clingy with each other, which is a good thing, I guess. Let's just say though, he did bring her along, and it was really awkward for us. But I don't know, us guys, we just kind of played off, and we just kind of, you know, treated her as if she was one of us. So anyways, we started like going party hopping, and we started like going around. But one thing I realized about this girl that my friend brought was that she would always look at me in the most weirdest way possible. Like, it was no lust or anything, or no serious glare like I used to say in my other stories. But no, this girl, like, actually, like, I felt like she actually had some kind of moral interest in me. Like, I remember one time I was just kind of like filling up my car at the gas station. She would just kind of stare at me and like put her finger in her mouth and kind of bite it and, you know, wink at me as if we were in a movie, like in those weird chick flicks. Anyways, I didn't think anything of it, because to be honest, honest, it's none of my business whatsoever. And like I said earlier, the bro code was there. And, you know, I don't want to break the bro code and, you know, basically go talk to my friend's girl because that's not my problem or issue. But one thing I can't lie about, though, is that she was actually really hot. Like, she was actually stunning. She was gorgeous in general. Anyways, as we were driving to our first party, I remember stopping at a red light and his car was beside mine. And I just remember this girl kind of staring me down as we were beside each other with our cars. I don't know. It got really awkward. But then when we got to the party, I want to say the most weirdest thing ended up happening. So when we got to the party, all of us guys were kind of just chilling there, sitting on the couch in the beginning when we first entered, kind of just talking about the plan of what to do. Usually if the party was really dog water, we would kind of just leave it and go to the next party. That's why it's called party hopping. But if we did actually enjoy it, then we'd kind of like disperse and kind of like enjoy ourselves. And knowing there's a lot of hot chicks in this party, we actually ended up kind of just going around, like, you know, mingling, being singling or whatever, except for my guy friend and his girlfriend at the time. And if you guys don't know, I'm not the best person at parties. I've said this once in another story about my first party. If you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. It's on TikTok. But overall, yeah, no, I'm not the best person at parties. I've had bad experiences. So me being at this party with me and my friends was kind of like, you know, just kind of chilling. And I was kind of just chilling with my friend and his girlfriend at the time because I didn't know what else to really do. Like, I'm not, like I said, I'm not good at parties. And we were all kind of just sitting on the couch. And then my friend ended up getting up for some reason and leaving. Now, this was like an hour into the party and we were so confused on where he went. Like, I remember looking at his girlfriend and his girlfriend was just looking at me and we were just like, where'd he go? Like, we were just wondering where he went. He didn't say any specifics, but I remember the girl ended up saying to me, hey, do you know where he ended up going? Now, obviously I didn't know. So I'm like, nope, no idea. And she was kind of annoyed and pissed off, which I don't blame her because, you know, it's not normal for a guy just to leave his girl at the party. Unless you do that. I don't know. Many people don't usually. And I remember me and her decided to go look around for him and like kind of find out where he was because it was a weird scenario, just me and her sitting on that couch. And instantly right at that moment, we ended up walking around and I want to say like 25 minutes in after walking around the whole entire house that the party was at, we ended up finding him in the bathroom. Now, what he was doing in the bathroom, we ended up opening the door and we saw him and this girl kind of drinking and let's just say they were making out. Guys, one thing I would never advise is that if you're bringing a chick you're talking to or a chick you're dating, don't bring her to a party if you know you're gonna, you know, cheat on that person. Or actually, in general, don't cheat. I think I've said this before. But yeah, so she ended up seeing that wide open, like right in front of her eyes, just when we opened that bathroom door, and she was pissed off. Like, this girl was madly pissed off. And I remember she was so pissed off, I guess she kind of just overreacted in some way. By overreacted, I meant she literally just called him, and yeah, that's basically it. And then after that, she went to the couch and started like kind of sitting down, sobbing, not really crying full on, but she was like sobbing on the couch. So I remember I ended up just, you know, sitting beside her because I felt bad. Now, I don't really know if it's considered breaking the bro code at this point because let's be honest, I don't know what position they were in the relationship. Knowing how the relationship was going, I don't know if they were still together or not. So all I remember doing was kind of just, you know, sitting beside her, you know, comforting her because I don't know, I felt bad, dude. I just literally felt bad. I don't know what else am I supposed to do. Like, I'm in a party full of a bunch of people that are wasted, just going around the couch and stuff, and I'm just kind of sitting here with this girl that's sobbing. Like, what do you expect me to do? Just run away? So I remember I kind of just comforted her. I talked to her a bit, and then we started drinking together. So fun fact about alcohol, kids, it makes you do weird things. And one thing I want to say is more than halfway through the night after that whole situation, me and her, as we were drinking together, things got blurry. And from what I remember, this is exactly what I remember. We started kind of like flirting with each other halfway through. And then later on, I remember she was telling me how she wanted to go back to my place. Now, this is where things get really tricky because I was drunk and I did not want to drive. So we ended up actually taking a cab to my place. So I left my car at the party. And when I left my car at the party, she ended up, you know, taking a cab with me to my place and we went back to my place. When we were at my place, we were both like kind of just sitting there and, you know, drunk. And we ended up going to my room and doing the devil's tango. And that went on for like hours on end. To be honest, I don't really remember at this point because it was night and I was totally out of it. But yeah, the next morning I woke up and I realized that, you know, what was going on, what happened. And I remember literally waking up beside her and she was looking at me, you know, like all happy and stuff. And I got really worried because at this moment I realized that I broke the bro code. And don't ever break the bro code. You know, that's like a major thing. But basically, I remember my friend texting me saying, hey, do you know where my girlfriend went last night? I remember you guys walked in on me doing something stupid. I feel really bad. And he texted me that. And to be honest, I didn't know what to say. And then like 10 minutes later after getting that text, I realized her phone was ringing and it was him. Now, this is where things got really awkward because, you know, I'm literally sitting beside her and she was sitting beside me and we're both like, you know, naked, just sitting there. Like, it was weird. And let's just say I had to hear their whole argument through the phone. And the thing that this girl did was so dumb. She literally said that she was at my place and this is where things got really bad. Personally, I wanted to get out of my house at that point because I don't know what he was going to do. But basically, he came down. We had to talk about it. We had to figure things out. And let's just say like it was kind of mutual because he did something wrong. I did something wrong. She did something wrong. Let's just say we we're all wrong. It was like a wrong triangle. And yeah, let's just say we didn't end up talking to each other for like like a whole week. And overall, even though he probably hates my guts till this day, I just want to say, just don't ever break the bro code.
A childhood friend of my wife's, call him Pete, moved back to the area after the death of a parent and losing his job. We offered to let him crash in our spare bedroom for a month or so while he gets things figured out. Pete moved in on March 28th, and we had him sign something that said that he'd split on 30th June, whether he had his shit sorted or not. This was partially to put a hard limit on the amount of time he'd be living with us, but primarily because my brother is going to spend about 6 weeks in town for work, starting mid-July, and will be staying with us. Pete didn't seem to be in much of a rush to find a new job, let alone find his own place, but he's in a bit of a funk due to the whole situation, so we had been giving him the benefit of the doubt. On June 1st, my wife reminded Pete of the fact that he had to go at the end of the month. He said not to worry, and that he'd definitely have something figured out by then. She gave him the same reminder this Wednesday, June 12th. I'll spare you the details. But this time, Pete countered by confessing that he'd always been in love with her, and that she should leave me, and I could find a new place while they stay in the apartment. Which is sort of funny because while I consider this to be her apartment as much as mine, I purchased it before we met, and her name isn't on anything. Anyway, she obviously shut this down immediately, and Pete did not respond well at all. No violence, but a ton of shouting, insulting, and attempting to guilt trip. It was intense enough that my wife just cut out to her mother's place, where she called me to fill me in on the situation. I went home from work and told Pete that we'd stick to the agreement despite his behavior, but the sooner he was out, the better. I spoke to my wife later that evening, and we decided till Pete fucks off, she'll stay in an investment property of mine that is luckily vacant right now. But I'd start working remotely and stay at the apartment more or less 24/7. Both to make sure Pete doesn't do anything stupid, and because my presence in the living room would hopefully be more than a little awkward for him. So this morning, around 6, I left to run to the office to grab some stuff I'll need while working from home. I got back to the apartment about half an hour ago, and as I stepped out of the elevator, I saw a guy with a toolbox leaving my apartment, and immediately noticed that a new deadbolt had been installed in the front door. I tried to explain the situation to the locksmith, but he basically told me that the lock's already in and he gave the only key to the guy in the apartment. So it's between the two of us now. Lovely. I asked him for a card and he said he didn't have any, so I asked where he works. He told me that it isn't any of my business, and reiterated that this is between me and Pete. I followed him downstairs, and luckily he was in a van that had a sticker with the company's name and info on the side. I called the number, asked to speak to the boss, and told him what had happened. He more or less did his best to not answer any of my questions. I'm sorry, but I don't have to inform you of our policies. Fun. So this is where I am at now. I called the police just to get a report filed, but I am 100% sure that when the officers show up, they're going to tell me that it's a civil issue. I'm not expecting them anytime soon, as this is a pretty small potatoes deal in the city where the whole thing is taking place. I was actually all set to offer Pete a cash for keys deal if he wasn't getting his shit in gear by 23rd June, but I have a feeling that I'm going to have to evict now. I own a few investment properties and have gone through the eviction process before, so I know that will not be a fun process, given how tenant-friendly my state is. But it is what it is. We've got that vacant rental property to stay in while everything gets sorted out, so that's covered as well. My only questions now are about who I can go after for what. Edit 1. Just heard from the owner of the locksmith, who sounded about as pissed off as I am. He's sending a guy over with a new deadbolt and a few extra keys. Apparently, he's already arranged for his dude to show up with some cops in case Pete is not a fan of the lock being changed. Bonus. In explaining that part to me, I got to hear somebody say, I know a guy who knows a guy in real life, and now I want to hang out with this dude. Edit 2. Mother-in-law took the wife out to get her mind off of this stuff, but she is now being returned to me, so I am gonna stop staring at the internet. The locksmith will be here around 8 p.m. and Pete's brother is going to swing through around the same time to see if he can talk some sense into him. Thanks for all of the advice and well wishes. I'll try to update again tonight if anything interesting happens, but at this point, it will more likely be tomorrow or Sunday. Mini update. The officers got me into the apartment, but I just grabbed some mission-critical stuffs and things that I don't want him to have access to if he decides that Step 2 is breaking shit. The cops said that if I need to get back in later on, give a call and they'll send somebody over. Honestly, a big part of me wants to just dip on the apartment till this gets sorted, so he has no way to claim constructive eviction. But I'm waiting to hear what my RE attorney thinks. I have actually installed a ton of deadbolts, so I know that I'd be able to do it easily enough myself. But I'm waiting for a call from the owner of the original locksmith right now, so I'm gonna hold off till I hear what he has to say, if for no other reason than to create more of a paper trail of how I have approached this. I honestly don't think cash for keys is going to work in this situation. As dumb as it sounds, I don't think he wants to live there himself or whatever. It's just a temper tantrum he's throwing. Because my wife didn't start swooning when he told her that he's been carrying some sort of pathetic flame for her since the mid-90s. Fine, then I'm making your life difficult. More or less. So, yeah. I am less worried about the inevitable eviction getting him out and more interested in the most effective way for me to be a vindictive shithead once I've got the apartment back. Update. So I got a call while I was getting ready to head back to the apartment to meet the locksmith. It was Pete's brother. Apologies for the lack of details here, but I don't know too much about what went down, and a chunk of what I do know is sort of personal shit that the brother, who just did me an enormous favor, probably wouldn't want me sharing. Anyway, the gist of the phone call was that he went by and performed a third-party constructive eviction with the back of his hand. So Pete's gone, as is most of his stuff. His brother is going to swing by next week to grab any odds and ends that they may have missed. I'm planning on making him dinner and hitting him off with a bottle of good whiskey when he does so. As far as Pete goes, I'm thinking that I'll follow through with at least the early part of the eviction process, just in case he tries anything cute. Gonna speak to my attorney about this first, but he's still in the wind. Turns out he's staying at a cabin his girlfriend's family owns and is pretty much as close to being in the middle of nowhere as human-built structures get. His admin or paralegal, I don't know what she is specifically, but she said that yesterday was the one day he wasn't going into town for cell service. This gives us the opportunity to convince him that the situation is currently way worse than it ever was. And as much as I love this guy, he's really fun to fuck with, so that's cool. After speaking with him, I called the owner of the locksmith to let him know that the apartment was vacant, so his guy wouldn't need to show up with police. Turns out, he was planning on coming by to handle this himself anyway, so that was easy enough. I met him over there. He had a handful of deadbolts for me to choose from, and he switched out the lock in about 5 minutes. We got to bullshitting about baseball because that's what you do in New York, and this led to him accepting my offer to buy him a beer so we could watch the White Sox smack our Yankees around. I got some backstory at the bar, and while this is secondhand information, the dude seems pretty reliable, so I've got no reason not to believe him. The guy who came over yesterday morning was indeed an employee of his, but he wasn't on the clock and actually borrowed the deadbolt without mentioning anything. Turns out, he is an old friend of Pete's and had been fed a story about an insane landlord who had decided to move into the apartment Pete was renting. Brilliant. Anyway, my new locksmith buddy told me that this guy was officially unemployed as of that afternoon. I would feel bad for the dude, but I'm too busy not caring about what his motivation was, due to the complete and total lack of any attempt to verify the story he'd been fed. This also explains the non-answers I got when I called the shop. The person I spoke to was a manager who had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. He was basically trying to buy some time to speak with the owner and the guy who had installed the deadbolt, instead of just pulling an excuse out of his ass for me. I wish he told me that in the first place, but I do appreciate the fact that he didn't just try to go into CYA mode for the company and his now former co-worker. All in all, I have a new preferred locksmith for when I need something done at any of my properties. So really, the only legal shit left is the restraining order, and Pete very kindly sent my wife a few emails last night upon figuring out that she'd blocked his number. Not gonna go into details, but I'll just say that the contents should make the restraining order easy to get. So thanks for all of the help and well wishes, but it seems like this is more or less a wrap, and a pretty amusing one too. My wife's gone from upset about the whole thing to uncharacteristically indignant, which she's admitted is kind of cathartic for her. So I don't even have a reason to feel guilty about laughing about what a moron Pete is.